Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Josh here, joined as always by Mr. Andrew Champagne, drinking champagne, coming at you again. Taking a little break last week. Funny story, Andrew. I think the live stream might be taking a break this week because Caleb's out of town again on Thursday, and I think I might be meeting up for dinner because he's coming into Chicago. So, although I think you said you've now become available on Thursday, so I might ask Mark if he wants to stream and if you would want to hop on. But
Well, let me know. First of all, here's the big question. If Caleb's coming and he's going to dinner with you, he's paying, right? Because he gave out taxed and I assumed had that horse for stacks and stacks of money.
okay, so the funny thing about Caleb is Caleb will give you like a $40 horse, but then like out of spite he'll leave like the 3 to 5 like sure shot off because he's going for a moonshot. So I don't necessarily know if he had anything, but I'm
Well,
sure
you
we'll
know,
talk
in
about it.
those situations, Josh, I'm going to alert you of this wonderful thing in thoroughbred horse racing that some people smart themselves out of. It's called the win bet, and it is available in those specific situations. Seriously, though, kidding aside, Caleb, nice call, buddy.
Um, we actually do talk about that often. We call it the pick one.
It's the best multi-race exotic there is.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Wednesday. I'm off. I have a bunch of errands I had to run today. So I'm going to be going to the dentist, going to get a haircut, and I'll probably do my packing today. I'm one of those people that gets really excited for vacation and packs entirely too early. I've been known to pack like a whole week before vacation just because like I'm just so excited for it.
Josh, my father is the exact same way. He
Yeah.
will tell me 7 to 10 days in advance that his bag is already packed, and I'll just look through the phone and go, "What? What? Why? Don't you need that stuff?"
I tentatively I'm hoping to meet your father next year. Tentatively because I think I might try and do um March Madness. And
If
I
so,
know
we're going to need to do a live podcast somewhere. We're
yeah.
going to need to have somebody pay us to do a live podcast somewhere in Vegas. It might be the seediest sports book imaginable, but we're going to wind up getting someone to pay us to do something, damn it.
We'll have to be careful because we do not exactly have the best the best track record with live podcasts from Vegas. The first one we did, I had a great group of guests. I had Andrew Capone from does stuff with Horse Racing Nation
Yes,
now.
he is a very active member of the People in Horse Racing named Andrew with Strong Opinions Club. We have monthly meetings, and when you think about it, there's more of us than you might imagine.
So he was on there, and then we had probably about another 6 or 7 real sharp horse players in the room, and we had Caleb in the on via just remotely, and Caleb, at the end of at the end of that one, Caleb goes, was I even here? You guys just did all the talking. I just felt so awkward because all the action's happening in this room, and I'm just like sitting here, just like. And so I was like, you were the eye candy. It's fine.
He
And
is
then
a very handsome human being. Let's just say that.
this year for NHC, if you have not watched that live stream, I would suggest you go back and watch it because Mark and I were already pretty toasted, and probably about I don't know 3/4 of the way through, we finally found Caleb. We actually had to go find him because he got lost somewhere between Planet Hollywood and my room at the Luxor, and to the point where I was receiving phone calls from his girlfriend, like trying to find him.
Oh,
So
great.
so it was great content. We love it. Andrew, I'm sure like after one cocktail you probably get loopy. So
No, no,
you're probably a
no.
cheap date. Um,
Once again, you forget people on Twitter and people in horse racing in general don't understand how big I am. For those that have never met me, I go 6'5", 233. I'm down 13 pounds since the start of
Ding.
the year. Proud of that. So people forget that. People genuinely forget that you're dealing with someone that has significant size to them. So no, after one drink, I don't get loopy. And I have to ask, what was the ding for?
Dan Patrick, I think it was a Dan Patrick show when people would call in, they would for some reason give their stats.
Okay.
They'd be like,
I
they'd be
wasn't
like,
sure if that was an inside thing with
no, they'd be like,
you and
six,
Mark and Caleb. And I mean, what needs to trip it next?
yeah, it'd be like 6'3", 280. You know, and it'd be just like a ding. But no,
I'm just
we can
saying, if
put
there's
Beanie
an
away.
Andrew Champagne drinking game or an over-under, let me know so that Beamy and I can manipulate it.
Look, if there's an Andrew Champagne drinking game, I would be drunk every single time we did this podcast. So yeah, and you'll drink to that. But yeah, so super excited. I'm going to Vegas this weekend. Obviously, congratulations to me going to Vegas for the second time this year. Second of probably 3 trips that I'll be taking this year. I think my wife and I are planning at the very least, going in December, which is our favorite time of the year to go. By the way, my wife loves Christmas decorations, and Vegas has it in spades. Everywhere
Oh
you
yeah.
go is decorated. And you go for Thanksgiving weekend, and so you see it all. Everything's up by then, but there's no shortage of Christmas stuff out there. The Bellagio actually has like a store that just sells Christmas stuff.
The Bellagio has stores that sell everything.
And so it's probably our favorite time of the year to go. The weather's great. We love that weather. It's like 40 to 50 degrees the entire time. It's beautiful. But we are going this weekend. So we fly out Saturday. And I've never gone Memorial Day weekend. I hear it's supposed to be busy. But for some reason, even though it's supposed to be busy and I would assume expensive, we have a suite comped at the Vidara. So it'll be nice. We had a nicer suite comped, but it was like a corner suite, beautiful room. But we had to change one day, and by doing that, they kind of downgraded us to just a regular studio suite. But
Okay.
we'll live.
You'll manage.
We'll live. Yeah, no resort fees, nothing. So it's a free room, and I will pay them back in kindness, aka gambling a bit, but. Yeah. Yeah, so it'll be fun. We got a couple of nice restaurants set up. We've already planned our alcohol, what we're going to drink, and there's a good chance that my friend Chase Sessoms, the Wolf of Oak Lawn, who does the Sports Gambling Podcast Network's notorious OTB, he always talks about getting sky loose, which is just having enough drinks to where you're on the plane and you're just like feeling good. You know, you're feeling sky loose. And we have lounge passes for the United Club before our flight on Saturday, and we've already pre-ordered some drinks
Well, there you go.
on the plane. So
I got to tell you about something really quick, though.
Yep.
I actually saw Chase the other night. I saw him drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's, and his hair was perfect.
What is that from?
Warren Zevon, Werewolves of London. What a great song. And
dude, the only part of that
right.
song, okay.
I forget. You do not expose yourself to media that is good. I'm sorry.
Dude.
I am sorry to everyone in podcast land for that joke, because I didn't quite realize that, oh, yes, Josh has horrible taste and will not get this. Hopefully some of you out there did. And if you did, hit all the buttons down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the comment button to just show Josh that maybe he needs to broaden his music outside of listening to Taylor Swift.
We played that song in marching band. Thank you very much.
Ahoo!
Yeah, exactly. Werewolves of London. That's literally the only part. That's the only part of the song
And
I know.
didn't get
Because the rest of it is like like he's just fucking saying. I don't know what he's saying. No one can understand what he's saying.
Man, Warren Zevon was great. Warren Zevon was wonderful. Responsible for probably my favorite David Crosby song too, because David Crosby wanted to continue getting wasted out of his mind on whatever substance he was hooked on at the time. Jackson Browne wouldn't let him, and he dragged David Crosby to Warren Zevon's house, who had a piano, and both Jackson Browne and Warren Zevon sat him down and wouldn't let him leave until he was finished. Great story.
David Crosby, is he the Partridge Family guy?
Get out. Get out. Just get out. Get out.
I refuse.
I can do this show just fine without you. I talk to myself enough as it is.
I'm sure you can. Yeah, so we have some fun stuff planned for Vegas. No shows or anything like that, but it's going to be nice to just kind of decompress. It's been really crazy with work, and I've had basically back-to-back work conferences, just a lot of work. I've had, we've been shorthanded, so it's gonna be nice to decompress. And honestly, it's gonna be nice to take a little bit of a break from racing, because racing's been kind of weird lately. But we'll get into that because Andrew, you also, I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about going to London, but you're gonna be racking up the frequent flyer miles over there, huh?
That's for darn sure. So for those of you that haven't heard, the Andrew Champagne World Tour is coming to a city near you over the course of the next, 4 weeks? Yeah, 4 weeks is about right. Thank you. That's exactly what I need. Anyway, so the way this is going to work is my fiance and I had planned to take a trip to Italy, and that trip to Italy is coming up June 14th. That was planned months ago. My fiance and I are very excited. We're going with her and one of our friends. It's going to be a blast. We're staying in Rome for 5 or 6 days. We're going down to Naples for a couple of days.
Nice.
That's great. A couple of months ago, I got wind that, hey, I got selected for Catena Media's Leadership Academy program. Thank you very much. Proud of that. That was pretty cool. They have an in-person module the first week of June in Manchester, England. So here's the itinerary. The itinerary is a week from Friday. I'm catching a nonstop flight to London. Cue the werewolves. We need to have the werewolves there. That's not a werewolf, Josh. That's the Law and Order bell. So red-eye flight out of San Francisco into London. Getting into London at about 11 a.m. on the Saturday, June 3rd, spending the day and the night there with a couple of people that are also flying over for Academy and a couple of people that are in London living there. On the Sunday, we're taking a train up to north of Manchester to this thing. The training session goes Monday through Friday. The Friday night, I fly from Manchester to Frankfurt, Germany. And I'm going to be there for 15 hours. Thankfully, the people at Catena sprang for a hotel right near the airport that I can just go check in, take a shower, get a decent night's sleep, and then go back to the airport and catch my flight. But that flight from Frankfurt to SFO, 12 hours and change. On the plus side, shout out to the people at Catena Media in the finance department and in their business office, because I wound up getting aisle seats with some legroom. This is a very good thing. I'm not going to mention my stats again because I don't want to get dinged, but that was very nice of them. I get back to San Francisco at about, I think it's about 3 p.m. on the Saturday, which is Belmont Day. So my dad's going to be running bets for me all day while I'm in the air. Then I get back here, rest for a couple of days. The following Wednesday, we go to Italy. And we go SFO to Montreal for 4 or 5 hours, and then Montreal over to Rome. Then from Rome, we take a train down to Naples. Going back, we leave Naples at 6 a.m. local time, fly to Paris. We're there for 7 hours. Then Paris to SFO. It's a lot of cities. It's a lot of frequent flyer miles, and it's a very narrow window of time. I'm excited. It's going to be a blast. But here's the fun part. No, it's not going to be a disaster, Josh. Here's the fun part, though. We're supposed to land back in San Francisco at 6 p.m. local time on the Friday, which is June 23rd, 1 month from when we're recording. 18 hours after that, I am supposed to be on stage at the Alameda County Fair in Pleasanton doing a handicapping seminar. And Josh, this sentence may be uttered for the first time in the history of humanity at this handicapping seminar. Put down the deep fried Oreo. The zombie is talking. Nobody's ever said that sentence before, ever. And it could well happen. It's in play because I have no idea, like physically I'm going to be there, but mentally I may be somewhere over the Atlantic, Reykjavik or something.
I just want to fly over to California when you get back and just heckle you from just the peanut gallery there during this
You
thing.
can heckle me on Twitter anyway. That'll save you the money.
That's true.
And you do that anyway.
So I guess we're gonna go back a little bit because I'm a little confused.
Sure.
Why in the world are you flying to London, then Manchester, or going to Manchester? Why do you have to go to Frankfurt in order to fly back?
Not a lot of direct flights out of Manchester.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it wound up being a case where I was able to fly out of Manchester on the Friday night, but my layover options were Frankfurt on the Friday night or on the Saturday, JFK or Orlando. And that would have made for a much longer day. So I just figure, okay, get me to Frankfurt, get me a hotel room there, and then I'll just take the one flight on the Saturday.
Yeah.
It was the least of the three evils in that. It doesn't make sense geographically speaking, but time-wise, it made the most sense from a logistical standpoint.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, just kind of rolling into the summer plans. I was planning on going to Belmont for Belmont Stakes, and I was very excited after National Treasure won because I was like, oh, it's going to be cheaper.
Nice call, Josh.
Thank you. I hated being right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later.
We promise there will be horse racing conversation on this horse racing podcast.
Yeah, so I kind of looked, man, flights and hotels in New York are just something else. And I always have a hard time with hotels because I go to Vegas so often and I just don't pay for them. So when I look and it's like, wait, $250 to stay at a DoubleTree? Excuse me?
Yep. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Bring money. And yes, that's the second Taylor Swift reference in this podcast.
I would know.
Yes, I forget. Popular music that has any semblance of relevance and or style. Just
now, if you could quote Taking Back Sunday lyrics from the early 2000s, then I would be all about it.
No. Just no. What's next? Are you going to say you were a fan of Dashboard Confessional?
Oh, I love Dashboard Confessional. Are you kidding me? Oh, who doesn't like Dashboard Confessional? Really?
Me.
Wow.
You can make the argument that Dashboard Confessional ruined the Spider-Man franchise for a couple of years.
Stop it.
Vindicated was everywhere, and it was a batshit terrible song.
What song was it?
It was the song that was every teenage girl's anthem in the mid-2000s.
Oh my God, Dashboard Spider-Man. What song was it? Oh, Vindicated.
Yes,
Vindicated is a great song. Are you kidding?
It's a terrible song. It's awful.
Vindicated might be their best song. Oh, I can't believe you. Oh my God. Oh, where is Jessica Paquette? I need her to come on here to defend this.
She already wants to kick my ass because I abstained from steeplechase last time.
And then Optics Emily will probably kick my ass because she's like punk and not emo.
Okay, me and Emily against you and Jessica. Tag team. Let's go. By the way, shout out to Homage for this WWE Slam t-shirt. Seriously, they make really cool stuff.
So anyways, we're talking about Belmont not going. It seems like I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I win big in Vegas and have some extra change in my pocket, I'll feel better spending the $1,500 plus it'll take me to spend the weekend. But I was like, man, if I'm going to spend $1,500 to go to Belmont, that might be better served going up to Saratoga for the week, because that's about what it costs me to go for the entire week. It's usually about $1,500. The flights are usually pretty cheap to Albany, so it's usually not that bad. And then our friend Mark I can usually con him into picking me up from the airport and
There you
going to the
go.
track. But what days were you planning on going up there? Because I was interested because maybe we might be able to get this work this out here.
My trip's already booked. August 9th to the 13th. It's a fairly quick trip for me. I fly out really early in the morning on the 9th, like 5:30 in the morning out of Oakland, stopping in your neck of the woods in Chicago, and then I'm into Albany at about 3:30 on the Wednesday. At some point, either on the Wednesday or the Thursday, I am going to need to defend this bad boy here,
Oh
which
boy.
is, yes, the Friendlies Mini Golf Invitational Trophy that I won last year in a rout. I believe I won by 5 or 6 strokes. And if you see down here, yeah, my name is on the trophy. The Stanley Cup, it ain't, but shout out to the Neville's family for mistakenly inviting me because, as it turned out, I'm a ringer. Um, yeah, so at some point we're doing that. I will be at the track Thursday, Friday, Saturday, flying back on the Sunday. The Sunday, there's no good way to say this sentence, but I am flying from Newark to Oakland on Spirit Airlines. Isn't that the most depressing sentence that you've ever heard in travel? On the plus side, though, A, it was cheap. B, I'm able to get an exit row seat that actually like has some padding on it and has some legroom, so it's not that bad. If you're flying Spirit and you get the extra legroom exit row seat, it's not that bad, provided you plan ahead with your luggage and how much you're checking and paying to check. I wound up paying $230 for the flight back, all things considered. That's not bad. But yes, August 9th through the 13th is when I will be up in the bad streets of upstate New York. And of course, I will be in this publication back here, the Pink Sheet, all summer long. Really excited about that. Less than 2 months until opening day, Josh.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at flights now.
There you go. That's the spirit.
Because that is the week. That is the week I can probably swing it, either then or sometime in July. Or the other option was closing day. But I don't know, where do you normally stay in town, or do you normally stay like in Albany, or do you stay
I
somewhere in
normally
between?
stay at this quaint little Airbnb managed by this guy named Dave, about an hour and a half south of Saratoga. That's usually the way that I manage to swing that. It makes for a lot of long car rides, but unlike you, he actually like enjoys good music, so that works out. Hi, Dad.
Oh, that's so funny. Um, yeah, I stayed in I stayed in Clifton Park last year, which is fine, right? There's nothing
Lived there
wrong,
for a little while. I know Clifton Park very well.
but I check in, and the poor manager is like in jeans and a t-shirt, and he just looks rough, like he just had a day.
What hotel was this?
This was was it the Hampton Inn? It might have been the Hampton Inn. And he's just like, yeah, it was the Hampton Inn. He's just like, I'm sorry, our entire linen staff just quit
Ooh.
today.
Ooh.
They just walked off. And he's just like, I had to go do laundry. He's like, by the way, you might not have sheets. So I'm like, okay, that's great. It's a great thing. But I'm like, look at whatever. Like, I had just spent the entire day at the track. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not going to hold that against him, right? So
Right.
I check
Worst
in.
case scenario, there's a Walmart, and if you need sheets, you can go buy some cheap ones.
Luckily, there were sheets. And then he's like, actually, it's just pillowcases. You might not have pillowcases. We'll bring them up. And I was exhausted. So I just fell asleep on the freaking pillows, right? Whatever. But the last day when I was checking out to go get to the airport, the water didn't work.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me this story too. It
Yeah,
never,
and they're
it
like,
never gets easier.
and so I asked the housekeeping staff, like, what's up with the water? They're like, I don't know, it just doesn't work. We don't know what's wrong. I'm like, oh, that's good.
That inspires confidence.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll just check out. And so I just, yeah, I checked out and yeah, I didn't shower before my flight, which felt not great. But I got home. It was an early flight. I got home, and things were fine. But yeah, so I'm just not going to stay at that hotel again. But it does look like, oh, it was the Best Western in Clifton Park. That's what it
Okay.
was.
All right.
But it does look like the Hilton Garden Inn at Clifton Park. Looking pretty good that weekend. So maybe we'll talk. And I'm gonna talk to Caleb too because I know he's looking to try and plan a trip, um, and that might be the weekend to do it. So,
You know,
um,
I have a question to ask you. So
mhm.
I know the neighborhood that you stayed in, and I just looked it up to double check. Did you, by any chance, venture just maybe less than a block down the road from where you stayed to a place called Delmonico's?
No,
You fool! Delmonico's is a wonderful, wonderful place where dreams are made.
I went to there was a IHOP across the street, and then there was a Dunkin' Donuts. I went to the Dunkin' Donuts for coffee in the morning, but that's just because it was better than whatever the hotel had. Man, I'll tell you, man, that hotel breakfast, like I'm not very picky when it comes to hotel breakfasts, but that was rough.
Josh, I'm going to need to fly to Chicago and show you how to live, I think. I'm thinking this might be a Barney Stinson situation and how he inflicts himself on that friend group by saying, I'm going to show you how to live. You really need to learn how to travel and how to pick good music. There's so many things that I need to teach you or that someone needs to teach you. Yeah, it's just it's staggering. Just staggering. If you're trying to play something, it's not coming over.
No, I was just trying to do
The
the
awkward
awkward
silence
pause,
thing.
yeah, and see
Got
what
it.
happened
Okay.
there.
No,
All right,
no, no.
but hey, we're 27 minutes into this podcast, and we might actually get to some type of racing.
Maybe. Maybe.
And before we get to the Preakness, there was one thing that we were talking about before, and I think we should probably bring this up first. The what are they calling themselves? The National Thoroughbred League?
That sounds about right. And I just want to double check before we go any further because I don't want to do something that misattributes it. Yep. The National Thoroughbred League.
Um, Man, this is I mean, so I like doing this podcast, Andrew, because I feel like we come at horse racing from similar but also very different angles, right? Like for just to tell it straight, I think if horse racing for some reason no longer had wagering, right? You couldn't bet on it anymore. I would completely stop watching, but I feel like you would probably still follow it, right? And you're waving your hand a little bit.
I don't
Um,
know, and I don't ever want to find out. I
yeah,
mean, my clout comes from these publications right back here, and the successes that I've had giving people winners and Lord Miles something something 59 to 1 something something. So I don't know, but yeah, if you're playing the Andrew Champagne drinking game, take a nice big swig.
I'll take a drink.
There we go. That's the spirit. But yeah, it's
But
so
I guess let's I guess take a step back. You are coming into this as a lifelong fan and somebody who worked closely or in the industry, whereas me, I'm coming from it from just a purely gambling standpoint as a handicapper, as someone who wants to bet on it. So similar but different views, right? I don't know who this is supposed to be for because when you think about the fan, right? The people you sometimes see on Twitter who follow certain horses and maybe don't even wager, or if they wager, they're doing, they're a $2 better. Nothing wrong with a $2 better.
no, we're
But
not
I'm just
going to
saying,
shame anybody
but
for
I'm
being
just
a two
saying
dollar better.
that's
Yeah.
a different fan, right? Than somebody like me or Caleb, Mark, any of our friends, right, who are very, very heavy betters. But I mean, they're gonna want to follow these allowance slash listed stakes type horses in in 6 horse fields, because that's what they said, it was gonna be 6 horse fields. And as a better, I want to bet on 6 horse fields. Like, this is literally one of the few things that we've rallied about, and why people love synthetic racing, or at least, let me back it up. People who I know personally, like synthetic racing and they like turf racing. Why? Because you get those big fields. So now we're gonna race these horses six at a time, and it's basically like, hey, let's just play Santa Anita every weekend. I don't know. I I, I don't know who this is for. And you took a look at the ticket prices, and now you don't know who it's for either.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this with a disclaimer that I think people need to understand. There is a certain sect of people on horse racing Twitter and in the horse racing fan base that are just automatically opposed to new ideas and are preconditioned to think that they suck. We don't want ideas to fail. We don't. We're not rooting for the National Thoroughbred League to fail. If this takes off and it's successful, fantastic. It's a new idea. We've tried something. We found something that works. Great. Wonderful. The problem is, a lot of times this industry lumps in the people with the there are legitimate problems with this and here's what they are people. And they try to lump them into one group as a bunch of haters. That's a mistake. There are significant issues with this. For starters, just because these horses are bought and procured, they're immune from the same injury issues and sickness issues and any number of other issues that horses find themselves in. You're going to start out with 36 horses. How many of those are going to be fit to run in every race of this series? Not many. And who's going to be liable for that? Who's going to be picking up additional horses? In some cases, Josh, I would have to imagine there's going to be significant turnover among the 6 teams that are part of this. Teams are not going to be the same from start to finish. They're just not. That's one issue. Second thing is, I understand there are investors of significant renown and people outside the horse racing industry will identify being able to be involved in this project. Fine. I'm not opposed to that. 36 horses being bought, procured, shipped to trainers, trainer day rates, medications, entry fees, all of that stuff. Who's paying for that, and where's the money coming from? We got a little bit of an answer to that when ticket prices leaked for the NTL series at the Meadowlands in October. $150 for general admission, $300 for VIP. No. Just hard no. There you go. That one would have worked. The "it's a disaster" soundbite would have worked too. There we go. Well done. Nobody who knows anything about horse racing is going to pay that much money to see 6 decent allowance horses face each other in 6 allowance races. It's just not going to work the way that it's set up. Do I hope it works? Sure. Do I hope I'm wrong and this revitalizes a certain aspect of the game? Sure. But let's look at the tracks that they've picked for this. Kentucky Downs is the opening one. We're biased. Corey Johnson is a friend of ours. That track became a very fun track to play. There have been legitimate issues with that venue the last couple of years. Batteries in the starting gate, horses breaking from the wrong spots in the starting gate, should not occur type stuff. They go from there, and I know I'm going to get the order wrong, but the Meadowlands is another track. Emerald Downs is another track. Los Alamitos is another track, and I think I'm missing one. That's not the A shift of tracks, Josh. It's just not. And those aren't the tracks where you're going to get the types of crowds that are necessary in order to show if this is working or not. I don't get this. I understand. Look, honestly, the way this looks, the more I read about it, the more I think somebody, whoever is backing this, and by the way, we don't know where the lion's share of the money is coming from. We know people that are involved, but we don't have the specifics as far as percentages of ownership and all of this. We don't know. The way it looks is somebody in racing was a big fan of Live Golf and is trying to copy that with the NTL. It's the same setup. The problem is the only aspect of Live Golf that would draw people in, the Saudi Arabia stuff aside, I'm not even going to get into that. I find that stuff that's going on there just absolutely repugnant. But they're paying to see the likes of Phil Mickelson, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, etc. People are not going to pay to see C plus, B minus level talent that isn't part of the series. They just won't. Now, if this was an issue where you were breaking up the highest of the high caliber horses as part of this league and setting up a series where those horses were incentivized to run back often and run back against each other, yes, that works. This iteration, no buys, Josh.
Yeah, I'm how can I put it? I think one of the best ways to, I think, keep people involved, but not just people, but I think owners, trainers, is setting up these kinds of series. Like I know Belmont and Naira themselves, they have like the Triple Tiara and the Triple Turf series, right? You know,
The best
having these big
example of this in all of this, Josh, the best example is the match series in the Mid-Atlantic circuit with Maryland and Delaware Park. That's a really cool series. And no, you're not getting the cream of the crop, but you're getting these hard-knocking horses. That stuff works on a regional level.
I think it would work on a national level, but you would need to put money into it, and you would need to offer a bonus, right? Like this isn't obviously horses, but Hawthorne has these contests that offer an NHC seat. If you win an NHC seat through Hawthorne's contests, if you finish first in the contest, there's $1 million bonus if you win the NHC.
That's pretty cool.
The NHC's prize has been around $700,000 the past couple of years. So the bonus they're offering is literally more than first prize for winning the NHC.
Yep.
I think the Triple Crown, if they offered a bonus, hey, you win 2 races, an extra $250,000 or something. I don't know where the money would come from, and I think part of the issue, and this is kind of, I think, part of the problem with us being so segmented, and not us, but horse racing being so segmented and being so separated and siloed, right? You have the different jurisdictions, you have the different tracks. There is no central body that can collect money and offer these kinds of things. Naira obviously is doing something with the triple turf, triple tiara, but they're not. I don't think they're offering a bonus or anything. But they're offering huge purses for those 3-year-old turf races.
So this was before your time. For those that are new to the podcast or do not know, Josh started following horse racing 5 or 6 years ago. But in the late 1990s, I believe it was Visa that had their name attached to a $5 million Triple Crown bonus for horses that swept that series. And this was back when $5 million meant something. Like, not when it was like, oh, I don't know if I can retire on this type money. But if you listen to Tom Durkin's call of the Belmont. I know it's your favorite guy, Josh,
The
but
sandwich guy, yeah.
if you listen, his call at the end of the Belmont when Victory Gallop sticks his nose out on the wire, he says, some pictures are worth 1,000 words. This one is worth $5 million because Real Quiet was live for the Triple Crown and Victory Gallop came and got him. That used to be there. It used to be something. It's not there anymore. I do think that could potentially help certain series, maybe the Triple Crown being among them. But again, that's not everything. It takes a big coordinated effort. And one more thing about the NTL before we move on. Can we please stop trying to make horse racing into Formula One? Like, can we just stop using F1 as a model for what some people think horse racing should be? It's a completely different landscape. It's a completely different set of people you're attracting to these events. And also, F1 drivers, they race every week. Build a horse that can run every week, and we'll talk.
I love F1.
I love F1 too. F1 is fantastic. F1 and that, two different products.
Shout out to my friend Bill, who listens to the podcast weekly.
Bill,
He's also
Bill,
a huge.
Bill,
He
Bill,
actually
Bill.
got me into F1.
F1's
He had
cool.
posted something, and I was like, I was F1 curious at the time, and he's like, look, watch the Netflix series, and I literally watched all the seasons of it during the off season this past year, and now I've basically watched every single F1 race this year. I now have you can't see it behind me, but I have right here where I'm reaching. I have a wheel, a racing wheel. So I play the F1 game with a racing wheel. I also play Gran Turismo with it.
Is the wheel named John Cena?
It is not named John
You
Cena
can't
because
see
you
it?
can't see it. No.
Yeah.
I'm gonna boo you
On a
this one,
serious, non-joking note, there is a video game on Steam called Motorsport Manager. If you like F1, you would love it.
Yeah, I play the. There's a mobile version of it. It's fun.
The console version is very good. I enjoy it. Unfortunately, the Mac upgrade a couple of years ago to Catalina was the operating system. Completely killed a lot of old games. Still very bitter about that.
Cruiser or wine mixer?
Yeah, I've tried wine, but that stuff isn't necessarily compatible with Steam, which is where I had everything.
Right.
Steam is just really convenient.
Catalina Cruiser or Catalina wine mixer?
Got it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we're 43 minutes into this show or thereabouts. If you stuck around with us this long, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. For obvious reasons, we have danced around the Preakness. And the two words that I tweeted after the race as part of my analysis of optics matter. And I'm not talking about Emily, much as we like her. Optics matter. Race 6 on the card, Bob Baffert trained horse breaks down. Preakness, Baffert trained horse wins. I am not a vet. I am not at liberty to say Baffert is juicing horses. It's so I'm not going to go there. What I am is somebody with a lot in communications and PR. And the quote that I'm going to bring up is from a show that I'm sure Josh has never watched because it goes straight over his head. But it's from the first season of The West Wing when CJ Craig says, I don't care what it is. I care what it looks like. This looks bad. It just does. And it has nothing to do with my feelings about Baffert or my feelings about any other trainer. If you can't see that what happened on Saturday is a really bad look, you're blind.
I do know about the West Wing that Dule Hill was in the West Wing, and he was also on my favorite TV show of all time, Psych. So that's as much as I know about the West Wing. But yeah, I mean, I was talking to you earlier, Andrew, and we were just kind of going back and forth, and you were like, "Oh, congratulations." You had the Preakness winner, and I was like, I didn't feel great about it. I was like, and I don't know how much of it was the breakdown. I mean, even I think if the breakdown doesn't happen, I don't think anyone feels great about that result. But I don't know. It's tough. You know, it's really tough because you see these threads. So I'm a big proponent of Reddit, right? I'm on Reddit all the time. You know, if I have 5 minutes at work where got some downtime, I'm browsing Reddit. I feel like a lot of people our age, Andrew, that's what they do, and younger as well. And after the Preakness, you would see these threads posted in the news subreddit and some of the bigger subreddits, and you just look at the replies, and everyone's like, "Wait, this guy was still allowed to train horses after what happened?" You know, with the Derby stuff, and that's the stuff that gets pushed to the average person, the person who doesn't follow horse racing, but circa style, which is like 3 times a year. And yeah, it's tough because you don't have there's not a great argument. Like, what are you going to say to a person who watches horse racing 3 times a year, and this trainer who they know got busted for cheating has a horse breakdown and then wins the big race that day? Like, and not to mention, like, it's not just having a horse breakdown, right? But having a high quality, this is a horse we treat with kid gloves. This is the favorite in this race. This horse lays over this field breakdown. You don't see those types of horses break down often. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I nobody felt great, I think, after that result. As much as, I mean, full disclosure, I had National Treasure singled in everything. I thought the horse was going to be had the pace advantage. I thought that the horse was just going to get the lead and just keep on going. And sure enough, that's what happens. But after seeing what you saw earlier in the day, how do you feel good about that, right? And I feel like sometimes, especially as somebody who handicaps a ton of races, who bets a lot, and I mean, for the sake of, I guess, my bankroll, right? And this doesn't, I mean, this is probably going to sound awful, but right, like you gotta kind of sometimes just separate that, right? Like between what's a smart bet versus who do you want to root for. You know what I mean? Like it's like if it's like if you could bet on wrestling, right? If you could bet on professional wrestling, like sometimes you're gonna have to bet on the heel. You don't feel great about it, but you got to bet on the heel. And I feel like that's kind of like what happened this weekend. Like I don't know, I don't know how to feel, right? And go ahead, Andrew. You're gonna hop in here.
Yeah, you hit on the point about public perception, and perception is reality. You're not going to be able to convince people who are dead set in their ways with an argument of, we love our horses. You might care deeply about the horses that are entrusted in your barn. There are a lot of fantastic horse people in the game. There are a bunch of fantastic trainers, grooms, assistant trainers, hot walkers, everybody on the backside. There are a number of fabulous people that work very hard, work very long hours to take care of these animals. That's great. That's wonderful. That's not the story. The story is the stuff the New York Times tweeted right after the race. And I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to read it verbatim. Okay. The tweet: breaking news. National Treasure won the Preakness as his trainer, Bob Baffert, returned from a suspension after a horse's failed drug test. Josh, literally everything after the words Bob Baffert was wrong. Everyone. Bob Baffert's suspension was the previous year. He missed the prior two Kentucky Derbies. Yes, that was a Churchill Downs ruling. That was not a suspension. Does that matter? No,
Nope.
because that's what a massive media outlet is going to put out there to people that read it, and their audience is far bigger than what our audiences are. We have a massive optics problem in this industry. And while it is true that zero breakdowns is an unattainable goal, that's what we should be shooting for. And this is why. We've got to be able to say we're doing everything we can for the horse and mean it. Instead, we're breeding weaker animals. The animals don't run as much. Race day medications are what they are. If you want to know what they do, talk to a vet. We're not vets. We're not going to go there. But there's just this perfect storm where every time racing can shoot itself in the foot, it does. Every time. And it's exhausting. And it's tough to care about a product that doesn't seem like it cares about itself.
Yeah, and then you look at somebody like Ken Rudolph, right, who made a bad tweet that was steeped very, very much in truth, right? Which I think you kind of mentioned, right? There is no way that you could 100% say a horse will never break down during a race.
So that's not quite what I said. And I just want to point out something very quickly. Ken's a friend of mine. He's been on I've interviewed him before. I've got a little bit of a relationship with him. Would I have tweeted that? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
The apology should have been enough.
Yeah. But I guess, like I said, going back, like I was kind of going even further back, kind of like you said, obviously zero breakdowns is the goal. It's technically not attainable, right? But at the same time, there are people out there who say because there's even a chance of it, we should just abolish it completely, get rid of it completely, which I think is very extreme. I agree with you. The goal should be zero. We should try and push ourselves as much to zero as is completely possible. But you have to also be realistic in that it's never going to be zero. And I think there, like you said, there's going to be people who just because of that they're never going to agree. But it's the other people. It's the people on the fence, right? It's just like any other hot button topic, right? You already got 25% of the people who are going to be against, 25% of the people who are going to be for. What are we going to do with these middle 50%? And I just don't think that we do ourselves, or I'm saying we like I'm part of the industry. I'm a nobody. But the horse racing industry doesn't do itself any favors, I think, sometimes. And like I'm going to be honest with you, and this is once again coming as a complete outsider. When you see this stuff happen, and then you see the New York Times and all these big publications post this stuff and get people up in a frenzy, and then you have something like HISA, which is not perfect, it's not great. I don't even know if it's doing anything right now, right? But it is something. But all you see are all the people being like, this doesn't work, this is no good. You've seen that meme, right? Of there's the gentleman who's sitting there. There's a guy sitting on the couch, and he shoots him, and then he's like, why is this happening, right? I mean, that's literally like HISA, right? Somebody is trying to do something, and everybody's just getting in the way, and then there's like, you see, it doesn't work. I think you've said it numerous times. What's your favorite saying to say about horse racing?
Optics matter.
No, the one about you want to do what?
Oh, yes. We want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. Insert person here. Have you tried ideas X, Y, and Z that require short term sacrifice for long term gain? By the way, I have a microphone down here that you can't see, but just trust me, it's there. Horse racing going, oh, you want us to do what? And it's because we as an industry can't get out of our way with these PR disasters, and that's what they are. And I'm not even going to prompt you to hit the button because this is a genuinely serious topic. These PR blunders, one after the other after the other. I'm not saying they're one person's fault. I'm not saying they're one track's fault. They're the industry's fault. And now we're going into the Belmont. And the story that broke Tuesday was Belmont isn't sure if they're going to allow Saffie Joseph trained runners to contest the major stakes races on Belmont Day. Okay, if you're an owner of a Saffie Joseph trained horse, you have a problem. You need to find another trainer if you want to do that. They found Rick Dutrow Jr. Josh, you're a newer racing fan. How much do you know about Rick Dutrow?
So I had to ask somebody because there's another Dutrow that trains, isn't there? There are two of
Tony,
them?
there's the brothers. Yeah.
And so Tony has been training. He doesn't have, I think, a huge stable, but his horses run in New York all the time. But all I know about Dick Dutrow is he served like what a 5-year suspension, or is it 10?
10.
10.
It was 10 years. And let's be real, a large portion of that was because he was an asshole to the wrong people. But there were also a number of instances where he skirted the rules and he cheated. If you haven't read, by the way, anybody out there, I will recommend this to anybody that asks for a good horse racing long form piece. Several years ago, Deadspin did a story on Big Brown and the people that were associated with him. Just search Deadspin Big Brown. It'll pop up. It is not a short read, but it is well worth 20 minutes of your time to read that from start to finish. That explains Rick Dutrow better than I ever could.
Did Rick Dutrow train Big Brown?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Funny story about Big Brown is my wife was watching The Girls Next Door. Do you remember that series?
Was that the one with the Playboy Playmates?
Yes.
Yep.
And they went to the Kentucky Derby, and she was telling, and now I walk in, and she's like, "Oh, like I'm like, oh, they're at the Kentucky Derby. Like, what's going on?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "One of them wants to bet on this horse, Big Brown, but she got talked out of it." I was like, "Oh, well, Big Brown wins," and sure enough, they show Big Brown winning. So
By the way, I've said this before, and I mean it. Big Brown saved horse racing that day. Big Brown wins. Filly named 8 Bells runs second. 8 Bells breaks down, euthanized on the track. Imagine those headlines.
now that would be nuts.
Yeah. Honestly, look, it's hyperbole and I exaggerate a little bit. Big Brown did racing a service that day.
It's really it's sad because I remember Ed DeRosa, our friend Ed DeRosa, he posted, "What's your first Derby memory?" or something on Twitter, and I told him 8 Bells breaking down was literally the first. That's the only thing I remember from the Derby, back when I was a kid. And it's funny because I didn't even know that was the year Big Brown won.
Yeah. I mean, again, optics matter. We keep going back to that. But going back to present day, Rick Dutrow is back. He's got a small string. He's getting started back up. He's started claiming horses in New York, and he's going to have strings at Belmont and Saratoga. He now has, at a minimum, 2 horses that will run in Grade 1 races. How's that a good look? Regardless of what anybody thinks about Dutrow and his suspension and Saffie Joseph and the things that have happened to Saffie Joseph trained horses, You couldn't have found another trainer in New York that knows how to win grade ones. Bad look. And I'm not saying that Rick Dutrow is guilty of all of the things that merited him a 10-year suspension. As I've said, a large portion of that wasn't what he did, it was how he did it. It had nothing to do with anything that he may or may not have done with horses. It had everything to do with what he did with his mouth.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it could be the article, the Deadspin article you're talking about, or it could be something else. But like Big Brown was had Winstrol in the system or something. But
That
but
was
it was
something,
legal.
yes, it was.
Yeah,
It was a bad look, but it was legal.
yeah.
And it's just, again, it's an unforced error. But who is going to tell the owners of these horses that have horses with Safi Joseph that they can't send their horses to whatever trainer they please? It's a really tricky situation,
Yep.
and it's just a bad look all the way around. As an industry, there are things we need to do better and things we need to avoid. But when you have an industry full of folks that, by and large, many of them, I'm not going to say all, I am not painting everybody with this brush, but when a bunch of them are only concerned with the 6 inches in front of their face and with the digits in the bank account, this stuff's going to happen. And I am not saying HISA is perfect. I'm not. Please don't label me a HISA apologist, horse racing Twitter. It's better than what we've got. I don't know what the solution is to racing's myriad of problems, but the status quo is not the answer.
I've in a private chat we were talking, and I had said something, and I believe this. If Safi Joseph Jr. and Bob Baffert were Kentucky-based trainers, I don't think they get the punishment they get. I know, and maybe that's super pessimist of me to think that, but it's such an old boys club that it's hard not to think that. I mean, let's go back to Jason Service winning the Kentucky Derby. If that was a Todd Pletcher trained horse, doesn't come down. If
I'm
that
not
was
sure I agree with that.
I 100% think if that was a Kentucky blue blood trainer, somebody in 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 Churchill Downs good graces, I don't think Safi Joseph gets. Look at Joe Sharp had the same horse disqualified for maiden races twice, and he got a slap on the wrist. Like, really, like if you're not gonna do something more because you had the same horse, Blackberry Wine, who was a maiden for like 7 races or something stupid, because the horse kept on getting disqualified from his wins. They let that horse keep on going. Joe Sharp got a slap on the wrist. I don't know. I have a really I understand that what happened is bad. It's just, to me, once again, like you said, optics matters. And the argument that Bob Baffert defenders have, that anybody who probably has horses with Safi Joseph is, and Safi himself said, well, all these other horses broke down. How come I'm the only one that's being investigated? And I understand it's a different things happened. It was different. But optics matters.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me as an outsider, somebody new to horse racing, to look and to see what happens at Churchill. I mean, heck, when Santa Anita was having all those problems, if you looked around the country, there were numerous tracks that were probably around the same number that Santa Anita was having.
Well,
But because Santa Anita was in the news, all eyes were on, well, what's happening at Santa Anita?
so when we talk about Santa Anita, we need to give credit where it is due to California racing, because they did enact very strict protocols that if the rest of the country were to follow, I think racing would be in far better shape. because you're having a lot more in the way of vet inspections, a lot more in the way of making sure horses are fit to run. Because the one that sticks in my mind, the one that really broke the dam on Santa Anita and the fatalities that happened there during a freakish meet. There was a horse named Arms Runner that was trained by Peter Miller. And you could see warming up, Arms Runner shouldn't have been within 50 miles of a track. He breaks down, and not just breaking down, coming down the hill at Santa Anita. It was a horrible visual. Again, optics matter. And credit to Santa Anita and credit to California Racing. A, they've put in protocols that work. B, they reopened the hill after a couple of years. I thought it was unfortunate that the hill was seen as the scapegoat, but they're running races on the hill now for horses that have some foundation. They're not running low-level claiming races going down the hill for horses that aren't necessarily the most sound. Smart move. Common sense type stuff. Now, as far as Baffert and Safi go, I think Baffert was going to get punished regardless because you don't mess with the Kentucky Derby. You just don't do it. If it was say the Stephen Foster and that happened, no. I think it was the race more than the person. As far as Safi was concerned, Churchill had a crisis on their hands. They needed to do something, and they needed to make sure, look, we can't have any more of these. So they found the trainer that had a couple of horses that broke down, stopped that trainer from running his horses. Unfortunately, there were a couple of other accidents on the Derby Day undercard. Again, racing shooting itself in the foot. There's a lot of issues with this game. And Josh, we love this game. Mm-hmm. We are not trying to hammer this game and hammer this game and hammer this game for content. We know there are some people like that are out there. That's not our game. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is sound an alarm and say, look, there are issues here. We love this game. We know how good this game can be when all systems are go, everything is firing. You've got a really big card on a really nice day at a really big track with big fields and big pools, and it only takes being right once or twice in order to make your day. We know what that feels like, and we know that the ceiling for this game is up here. We also know we're nowhere close to it, and that something's got to change.
So you think if Dale Romans trained maximum security, that horse still comes down? Mr. 100%, the leader in wins at Churchill Downs, who has never won a Derby.
I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Mm-hmm.
How much money did that DQ cost you?
About $8,000, $9,000.
Horse should have come down. Right call.
I don't think so. But
I had no dog in the fight. I did not like maximum security. I had Improbable. I had Tacitus in there somewhere. I had no dog in the fight. To me, the issue wasn't the DQ. The issue was how long it took to make the DQ. 22 minutes was freaking insane.
Yeah, I guess we agree to disagree there because...
Okay. You know what? And here's the other thing. Here is the other thing that nobody wants to admit, especially on horse racing Twitter, which is home to some of the weirdest discourse known to man. This game is founded on disagreements. This game is founded on my money against your money, whether it's me as an owner, me as a trainer, me as a gambler. It's my money against your money. Sometimes I'm right. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes we're both wrong. But either way, there's another race in 30 minutes, and we can all do this dance all over again. That's what makes this game absolutely great. It's okay to not agree on everything all the time. Stop turning things into flame wars on Monday and Tuesday because you're bored and don't want to play parks.
I still think you're wrong.
I didn't hear that. What was that?
I said, I still think you're wrong.
It's okay. Look, Pink Sheet, every summer, If I'm wrong 70% of the time, I've had an amazing meet.
Oh, here we go.
No, it's a fact. In order to be good at this game, you have to be very good with being wrong. Otherwise, you're going to get humbled real quick. You're going to get your ass kicked and you're going to get spat out outside the track looking for a ride home. Part of this game is being wrong sometimes, and it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know, man. I
It's
feel like
tough.
yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just like you said, you just see things, and like I said, I'm coming at this from a complete outsider. You know, you've mentioned it before, very much new to the sport, and like I see things sometimes, and I'm like, that's weird. And I think you did touch on the most, I think, important part, and one of my huge problems with Churchill Downs, n- not to mention the fact they shut down my home track, but just they really do put the Derby above everything else.
Well,
And
have you seen the money? Money
true,
talks. You can't
true.
fault them for doing that. If that's and look, I understand the sentiment that has become on horse racing Twitter with regard to the Triple Crown. And some people taking the hipster stance of, why do we care about the Triple Crown? Hi, Mark Capitan. How you doing? Um, Look at the money. That's why. It's a very simple answer.
And it's just like with horse racing, it's just so mesmerizing, so hypnotizing. I'm just captivating. I am vindicated. I am selfish. I am wrong.
Boo this man. Boo.
I'll boo
Boo.
myself.
Boo.
I'll boo myself
Boo.
on that.
Boo in the comments. What a
Oh my
horrible,
god.
horrible song that was. But on a serious note, if you're watching this on YouTube, again, first of all, thank you. You can see a certain sense of exhaustion in both Josh and my faces. And it has nothing to do with the fact that we've been doing this for a little over an hour. It's because it's starting to get really tough to defend certain things that are going on. And the story I'll tell, and then we probably want to wrap up at some point
Mm-hmm.
because we know our listeners have lives. Um, yeah, our listeners have lives, us not so much. A couple of years ago, there was a runner by the name of El Deal. El Deal was a mid level claimer, I believe, in either Florida or New Jersey. Got claimed by Mr. Jorge Navarro for, I think it was either 16,000 or 12,500. So not bottom of the barrel, but lower level. Jorge Navarro ships El Deal to Charlestown for a 4.5 furlong race. It was a starter allowance. El Deal wins. El Deal, off of that effort, went to this place right back here, Saratoga, for the Grade 1 AG Vanderbilt, going 6 furlongs. El Deal was, I believe, 4-1 that day. El Deal jogged. And we all knew what was going on. We know. We absolutely know. And that's something that, as somebody that spent a lot of time working full time in this game, it's one of those things you balance. It's one of those things where you say, okay, as a handicapper, I hate this. But we know certain horses, we know certain patterns. And as you said, you've got to bet with your head. As a fan, optics matter and certain stuff just looks horrible. And some stuff needs to change and change very quickly. Otherwise, there's every chance we wind up going the way of dog racing in this country.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at Reddit, that's one of the parallels that everyone makes. Hey, we canceled dog racing. Why can't we do the same for horse racing? And I know, states like Florida and New York and Kentucky, um, where the industry is so big that I don't think they're in any immediate danger. But
No,
if it ever got into a ballot, I think they really need to be careful because their public perception at this point is at a low point.
it is.
So, I really think that they do need to be careful. But I'm sure this is going to kind of be a theme of the summer. Honestly, I think I don't think this is going away anytime soon. I think this is something that we're going to talk about a little bit more. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Woo.
Bless you
Thank you.
again. You don't get another bless you. If there's a third sneeze in the sequence, you don't get another one.
The first one was like a half sneeze, and then the second one was a full one. So I think I'm good. But
Okay.
yeah, I think that this is going to be something that's going to be closely watched this summer, similar to how with Santa Anita, right? They shut it down, and that summer Del Mar I think believe had zero breakdowns, and it was applauded. It was great. Like you said, there were a lot of really really great changes made out west. Um, and I think that this summer is really it's I don't know, we're kind of at a boiling point at this point. So
Yeah, we've as an industry, we do great at kicking the can down the road, waiting a couple of years and making it somebody else's problem. Stop doing that. Just stop it.
yeah, and there's multiple examples of this. I remember I was talking to um, Ed DeRosa about something, and I had mentioned to him, I was like, look, horse racing literally had 10 to 15 years on mobile sports betting, where you could bet on your phone, you could bet online. Did they capitalize on it? No. I don't know if they just assumed that they were always going to be the only game in town. What was going to happen with that? But now you do see DraftKings and FanDuel, the big sports books, getting involved with horse racing a little bit. But it might just be too little, too late. But so hopefully with this with safety, with like you said, optics, we aren't too late. And I think the summer is going to be really kind of a turning point, boiling point, whatever you want to call it for the industry. But we've gone like way too long over episode that I thought was going to be extremely short because there's not a lot going on this weekend. But Andrew, you got anything else coming out this weekend?
Nothing overly specific, just looking to try to relax a little bit. I'm working on an annual passion project of mine, which is helping my fiance with the video that is going to air at her class's fifth grade promotion ceremony in a couple of weeks. So,
Hmm.
going to try to work on that, get that squared away. You may remember if you follow me on Twitter last year, I crowdsourced suggestions for a playlist and got a wide variety of responses, including some people taking me to task for trying to make parents cry.
Hmm.
I got nothing for you. If you're going
That's
to be
funny.
mad at me about that, it's not as absurd as the guy that was mad at me about having my fiance in my profile photo, but it's not far off.
That was a good one.
There's, I attract these people, and for the life of me, I don't know why. Somebody actually put out, and this is something that I greatly appreciated. I don't seek out these people. I don't try to provoke people. I don't do the Coots thing and engage in day long battles with people because I think it's fun. These people find me.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that I will never understand as long as I live.
And yeah, so for us, right now, Thursday stream is still up in the air. Take a look on Twitter. We'll let you guys know if we're going to be streaming. Maybe Mark will want to still do it with the Caleb night out, and he'll pull some ringers in. I'm sure Andrew, I'll let him know you're available. But yeah, I'll be in Vegas this weekend. If you happen to be out in Vegas, shoot me a DM. Maybe we meet up for a drink or something. But yeah, as usual, Andrew already told you hit all the buttons. Make sure you hit all the buttons, like, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed on the podcast feeds. Heck, download multiple apps. I don't care. Yeah, we'll catch you guys later. I will hit you with the Vegas music because why not? But have a good week, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Don't lose your shirt, Josh.